welcome to That's Good Craic.
With me, Dan, Colin.
How is? What's the crack?
And Mick.
Yo, yo, yo.
Listen to our podcast every 2 weeks.
How are you doing, everybody? You're very welcome to the That's Good Craic podcast. We're on podcast number 21 this evening. And I'm very glad to be joined, as usual, with my two friends, Danny and Colin. How are you doing, boys?
So,
What's the crack?
It's always a competition to see who jumps in there first or who doesn't jump in there first. But no, it's really good.
You have to start scripting it.
Yeah, it's nice to see you all again, lads, and hear you.
Good stuff. Yeah, we're very happy and honoured this evening to have Michael Harding, an Irish writer and columnist, actor, amongst other things, and his crowning glory, of course, as you wouldn't know, but you will now, is that he is married to my aunt. So I decided to pull an old, what would you call it? An old favour out of hat and ask Michael to come on. The reason we asked Michael to come on was that we had a friend of ours, John Gibbons, on the podcast. I'm sure listeners will remember. And he was sharing about his journey out of depression, and it just had a lot of similarities with our journey out of substance abuse. And when I think of depression, I think of Michael. He's written books on his experience with it, and amongst a lot of other things that we've discussed on the podcasts, things like identity and therapy and all that type of stuff. And Michael has written a new book of late. It's called Chest Pain. And Michael, first of all, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be here. How you guys?
How are you, Michael? Good.
How are you, Michael?
Nice chatting to you. Good to see you.
Good stuff. And Michael, would you mind kind of giving us a brief summary of your new book, Chest Pain, and how it came about?
Well, Chest Pain is a book about chest pain. And as you know, if you have chest pain, you could have a heart attack. And so the book is about a heart attack I had in 2018. And I didn't think I had a bad heart because my cholesterol is very good, and I exercise well, and I'm fairly fit, not overweight too much. And what I didn't realise was that probably as you get older, there can be all genetic things in the body that you're not looking at, and maybe a little bit too much stress, maybe a little bit too much, like I'm 66 years of age, you might be working like I'm 50 years of age. And the next thing, you get the old heart attack. And I was very lucky because I go around the country. As you introduced me correctly, I'm a storyteller. I write books, I write columns in the newspaper, and I write plays. But essentially, I tell stories. That's really what I am. I'm a shanachie. I tell stories. And I make them up with my ears because I hear people. I sit in gala shops and I sit in restaurants and I drive around in a van, and I do listen to people. And they tell me extraordinary, strange things. And then I write them in newspapers and books, and I get paid for it. It's amazing. And so I'd be doing all that, and I got a heart attack because I was doing shows, working very hard, staying in hotels, 3 months on the road in a van. And one morning in the Crown Plaza Hotel in Blanchardstown, I'm lying there with the pain in my chest for about 2 days, and all of a sudden it's like a bus coming through the window, and I realise this is the end. I'm having a heart attack. So I phoned the emergency, and there was paramedics in the room about 9 or 10 minutes later, because I was right beside Blanchardstown Hospital. I was so lucky. If it was somewhere else in the country, I'd be dead, right? And so once they got me and there was no damage done to the heart, to put in a stent, and the stent makes you, like, it gives you more life, more energy. Because obviously I was going around for 3 or 4 years there, pumping through an old withered artery that was like 90% blocked. So the year before the heart attack, I was in a great sort of darkness, and I was thinking my life was going to end. And I was doing a lot of praying in Christian Orthodox churches in Warsaw. I'd go into them because I loved the icons, the beautiful images of all the saints and Mary, the mother of Jesus and all that, and little red lights in front of them, and it'd be beautiful. And the music would be gorgeous, Russian music, choirs singing. So I loved all that, and I was really happy, and I thought, I'm going to die and go to heaven, it'll be grand. And then the next thing I realised, I have a heart attack. But when I came out of the heart attack, I got really excited, like really happy. I felt a deep sense of gratefulness that I'm alive. And that's 9 months ago. And I still feel that. I feel very like every day I'm kind of intoxicated by the magic that I'm alive. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, as myself and the lads have spoken about, we had substance abuse issues, and they were severe,
Yeah.
And, we realised, we were blessed, to have many years of sobriety behind us. And I think, the lads will agree, definitely the way I look on it, I know that if I hadn't have stopped when I stopped, I was going to die. It wasn't an if, but, or maybe. It was a definite. And I didn't believe I was going to be able to stop. I was in a kind of a place where I was hopeless. That's the biggest word I could say, is that I just felt totally hopeless. And I didn't believe I was going to do it. And I can relate to that feeling when I finally did get clean and I came into this new life. I felt like I put a gun up to my head, I pulled the trigger and I missed. And I was just like those early days of and early years of just, oh my God, I can't believe I'm after getting this second chance,
Yeah.
And we've shared about it too.
I think. Do you think there's something like, particularly young men, that in some sense they almost need to be dangerous? They need to take these terrible risks, and they are terrible risks. But they live dangerous lives and sometimes reckless lives until they're about 40.
Yeah.
And then it all changes, and they settle down and become totally different.
Yeah.
Do you find that?
Absolutely. There's a scientific thing we've talked about. There's a scientific side to it, where they say about the frontal lobe, where when it's underdeveloped, it doesn't actually develop fully in men or women until 25.
Yeah.
And if you use substances excessively, that slows it down and can stop it.
Yeah.
So you're more irrational. You're more you're more spontaneous. You'll do things off of women. That was definitely me.
Yeah.
And I think to use substances alcohol and drugs the way we did, that has to be a part of it. You do feel immortal, as a child, as a young man. I definitely did, and it feels courageous at times. It does. If you're living an extreme life,
I know,
it can feel courageous, in a weird, warped kind of way.
But you see, I think that all these things, one of the things I believe is that everything is natural and everything is good. So even bad things are good, right? So even like the abuse of alcohol or other substances, in a strange way, the badness of it is good, because it can lead you somewhere in a deep, meaningful way. It's like banging your head off a wall. It's good because it's lovely when you stop.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
That's the perversion of the male human.
Yeah.
And it probably comes out of hundreds of thousands of years of kind of being a predator and aggressive. And it's only in the past 70,000 years that we've kind of got a bit house trained.
Yeah, I think we've discussed it here too. Some of the the reasons behind it, maybe, and there's lots of talk nowadays about from I think is Dr. Gabor Mate, is that his name? And he's talked about how trauma is a massive part of addiction, and that he's done years and years of research, and that when he comes in, a lot of people look at their lives sometimes now. I know many people who've had issues and who've gotten clean, have gotten sober, all those types of things, and the vast majority of them have extreme trauma kind of.
Absolutely,
But we've discussed it here as well, different things, just in Ireland, say for instance, I remember a guy telling me years ago, he says, sir, everyone's traumatized in Ireland because of the famine. That these traumas are perpetuated through generations. Because no one gets, for all the people that don't get, then there's birthing trauma. There's just getting, being born in a hospital. That's traumatic,
Then
of
being
course,
born in Portlaoise, like that must be fierce traumatic.
and then having to live in it.
Jesus, I'm in Portlaoise. No.
Yeah.
You can throw Carlo into that one as well.
Yeah. Like you get born in Cavan, you just come out smiling, you know.
That's it. Yeah.
Or Roscommon.
Roscommon.
Yeah. Where's Roscommon? It's
just
somewhere
beside
between
Mayo.
Westmead and
They still
Mayo,
haven't-
is it, or
they still
something? I don't
haven't-
know.
They still haven't figured out yet.
I think
It's like, no
I
one
think
actually
Roscommon
knows
is
if
a
it
myth.
exists.
I don't think it exists.
just a
I think
myth.
people
We
pretend
move
it.
around.
Kind of like
Yeah.
Camelot, you know. It's just like Roscommon and Camelot. You know.
But I think that like the substance abuse is one way that could be expressing like an unconscious trauma. I think that in another way, depression is the same. That depression maybe it's not coming out of trauma, but maybe it is. Do you know? Like maybe all human dysfunction, maybe all health issues have roots in the unconscious that we don't know about.
Yeah.
And that's why they're difficult to heal.
Yeah.
You know?
But our like, I mean, we've all had experience with it. We've also discussed it on the podcast, like that there's one therapeutic way of dealing with addiction, amongst other things, and that's like been the 12 steps.
Yeah.
And as a part of that, it's kind of viewed as like a spiritual malady, a thing that where it's like where there's a lot of people say it's like an emptiness, a spiritual hole that we try to fill with, whether it be, we talked about, it's like it can be with social media, it can be with money, it can be with work, it can be with sex, it can be with porn, it can be with drugs, it can be with alcohol. And that really the substance abuse is just a symptom of some underlying thing, and it's
trying to fill it.
It's trying to fill it. And going through this process, then, you know what I mean, many people have found that, you know what I mean, including myself, they're going through it and finding something else, like, you know what I mean, to kind of fill that positive kind of positive.
And it's hard in this modern Western culture to find a language that works, isn't it?
It is very, very, because it's so loaded in this culture, you know.
Like you talk about it's spiritual or something, like, you know, what satisfies your psyche, what satisfies your soul, and if you're feeling that there's a gap, an emptiness inside where God used to be, and you're filling it with substances or drugs or sex or whatever, it's like it's tricky exploring that conversation in a secular culture.
It is, very much so. Like, you know what I mean, I'll share it, like, you know what I mean, we myself and the lads, it's come up before, you know what I mean, like, say the word God, that's thrown into the middle of it, and it's like, it's so loaded, you know what I mean, and it's like, you know, in like people's views on it and stuff like that. Like, I'm sure the three of us, myself and the two boys, if you sat us down, we have different views on it, you know. And for me, it's just this constant journey I've been on, you know, since I would have started on this journey, like, you mean, of I was searching for my meaning, my understanding, and it has changed. It was like I would have kind of rejected, say, religion. Someone who was helping me out years ago and kind of, you know, a lot of experience with spirituality, and used to go over and do sweat lodges in America with Native Americans, all this, and they would have said to me, like, religion it's like it kind of goes against spirituality almost. So I would have kind of turned me back on it. I wouldn't have any interest in it. Like, we've talked about what's his name, Paulo Coelho. We would have been very moved by Paulo Coelho's book, The Alchemist. I read loads of his books, and I remember Michael reading that he was a devout Christian, and immediately I stopped reading him. Immediately I turned off, and that's the way I had stayed for so long. But recently, over the last couple of years, I've felt, you know, I just wanted to see. I would have read a lot of atheists' literature. I would have done all this type of thing. And I ended up feeling hollow, Michael. You know what I mean? I felt, you know, it just wasn't doing it for me. So I remember in work one day, I just thought to myself, all these guys were making me feel foolish for wanting to believe in God. And I remember I decided, why don't I look for intelligent people who do believe in God? That have written, you know what I mean? And that's what I've been doing the last couple of years. But in saying that, I've been doing that for the last couple of years. I've read a lot of books, I've done a lot of things, and it has changed. I would never have talked to the lads about it. Do you know what I mean? It's funny, guys, we're close, we're friends, everything like that, but it's just something that I've been on in kind of in solitude.
Well, and you see, there's an Asian proverb that says, when you name the bird, you cease to experience the song. And that it kind of sums up for me the sense of how we're always trying to use a language which is like religious or spiritual to name the condition of being in existence. But the minute we use the words are not adequate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like no matter how you name the mystery of life, the words you use will never hit it. The actual mystery of life is always kind of beyond the words. And I'd say that's where you always need some kind of ritual. You know, like, even, like, it doesn't have to be religious. You know, like, people come together once a week sometimes and have, you know, a bit of a meal or something. Or a family gets up on a Sunday morning and they go out and have a walk in Forest Park or something. You know, these are all rituals.
Yeah.
And yet you become more deeply connected with your family through, let's say, walking through Forest Park. You don't sit down looking at your wife saying, how are you feeling today? Oh, I am feeling this, that and the other. Do you know what I mean? Naming it and the language of explaining the mystery of existence is like inadequate. It helps us. And there's another great thing to talk about religion. You know, there's a story about the old monk and the young monk, and they're in the boat out in the lake, and there's a full moon. And the old monk stands up and he points at the moon. And he says, look, the moon. And the young monk looks up and he sees the moon. Right, so that's a nice story. But the point that people make about the story is that the finger that points at the moon is religion. Religion is like the finger, but it's not the moon. It's not actually the thing it's pointing at. And that's always beyond you. You can never. And there's another Asian proverb to say that religion is very good. It's like a boat. It gets you across a river. But the problem is people tend to walk around with the boat on their head, which is not a good idea. Do you know what I mean? Fucking give you a bad neck. So like religion, and another one I'll give you, Karen Armstrong, she's a great historian of religion. She says religion, like art, is rarely practiced well. You know, she would put religion in the area of creative art.
A lot of people do.
And it is the right side of the brain that does the poetry. Right side of the brain does the art, the painting, the creativity, the singing, the music, and the religion, right? And then the left-hand side is the rational, the logic, and all the rest of it. And the neurosurgeons in the past 4 or 5 years collectively have agreed that by the lack of practicing religion of some description, the right-hand side of the brain is becoming underdeveloped and is creating both mental illnesses and physical illnesses for human beings in the West.
Yeah.
So get back to Jesus, it's healthy. And I'm for Buddhism and Hinduism and Judaism and Islam. I'm for them all. I believe in them all. I think the one mistake people make is tying themselves down to the obsession of theology in one single religion. Religion is like music, but you don't hear anybody like who would be ideologically, you know, only listening to Clannad and Christy Moore and telling you I know nothing about any other music. So religion is like music, and I think it's also like psychotherapy. So that a great way to enter into religion is to establish clearly that you don't believe in it. I really think that's a good place to start. Forget this nonsense that you're going to believe it. Don't worry about that. But use it like imaginatively, the same way as you would use a visualization if you were in psychotherapy, right? Imagine it and see how you feel when you have kind of meditated a little bit, whether in Buddhist or Jewish or Christian or Muslim terms. If it brings you into the present moment, you know, what to say, be here now. If it brings you into being here now, more fully, more completely, emotionally with your loved ones and with the environment around you, then it's good. It's not good because it puts ideas in your head or because there's a God. Forget that, our nonsense. But imagine there's a God. And then see what it does to you when you develop love and compassion. Because all religions, the whole 5 great pillars of world religion, their bottom line is you will find heaven through compassion. I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing that that's in 5: Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Hindu, Buddha. Bottom line, love and compassion is the journey to heaven. So,
Yeah.
I think the thing, like, thanks, first of all, Michael, thanks for coming on. And kind of the thing from listening to you there is I get a kind of very kind of, tell me if I'm wrong, of an understanding that you believe that many, from using the proverb that you were saying, that you can get many fingers that can point you to spirituality, as in the monk standing in the boat, that many religions can bring you to the same place, as in,
absolutely, yeah.
you know what I mean? And that's strongly my belief. I grew up, my parents were hippies. I didn't get baptized. I was never part of any particular religion, but I have a deep belief in spirituality and a strong belief in a higher power or God, and I meditate daily to connect with that higher power, and I believe that it's really, really important, and it helps me connect with people around me, connect with the world, and connect and be more understanding and bring more love and passion into my life, if that makes sense. And I was just interested in listening to you talk about that, you know, and the importance of that in my life. And the other thing that, just from listening to you talk there, was I liked what you said about the fact that, you know, that the darkness or the dark parts or the tough parts, or for example in my life, going to the depths of addiction and going to a very dark place where I didn't want to live anymore, was a very important part, and I'm grateful that part was in my life to get me to the next step in my spiritual journey. You know what I mean? That it was a necessary evil, if that makes sense. Yeah, for my spiritual growth, and I liked what you touched on about that. You know, because personally, you know, it's I wouldn't go back and say I'd change it. You know what I mean? I'd like to change the damage that I did maybe to other people, but I wouldn't like to change that part of my journey, because it's made me who I am today, you know. And I suppose one kind of questions I'd like to ask you is, have you explored a lot of religions in depth, and have you practiced many different types of religions to get to that to get a connection with let's say God or spirituality?
Well, I have, but before I start talking about different religions, I suppose the two things that are important for me about this kind of conversation is that it seems to me it only has validity if we're talking in terms of psychotherapy. So, like, I'm never talking about religion as if that's the fundamental truth of everything.
Okay.
I far prefer use it as a language of therapy, the same way as you might use Gestalt therapy, Jungian analysis, whatever. There's different languages of therapy that are used and fashionable in different places. And what I'm saying is that the poetic language of religion and prayer are also valid ways to make your psychotherapeutic journey and to awaken better to the present moment and to other people around you. And also to heal the unconscious, heal the wounds of negativity or whatever. So I keep it strictly in secular terms, even though it's like I know it's a kind of a double take I have. It's like saying to people, by the way, I don't believe this, but let's pray. It's a good idea. Well, so why would you pray? Well, because you'll feel the moon is more beautiful when you look out at the window. That's all. There's no other big theology. We got headlocked in Western culture with scholastic philosophy for about 300 years, and we're still in the detox phase. And that's why most people in the West say, "Oh, I'd have nothing to do with religion." They're dead right in a way, because we just got sick on it. We're regurgitating it. We took so much legality. And the other point I'd like to make too is that I'd be a very committed person to the idea of some kind of democratic state. Like I'd call myself a Republican in the wide European context. And a republic is a place where everybody's equal, women and men. Now, the problem is that within religions, there's a patriarchy, historical tradition that makes women unequal. and in ways that are still needing radical alteration. Do you know what I'm saying? That so all those issues of women being completely equal with men and having an equal role in society, they're bottom lines for me. Before I would open my mouth talking about, religion. But having said that, having accepted and recognized that, I think that faith experience, prayer, religion, they do work like psychotherapy, and they do heal the heart, and they're very beautiful. And I'm sorry for saying all that, but you were asking the question, like, have I tried different religions? And I tried them like sweets. Yeah. Like I grew up Christian, a Catholic, and I loved I loved it when I was young. Very involved in it, and I loved the beauty of ritual, and the incense and the bells and the candles, and I still do. And it's probably where I got my passion for working in theatre, is the ritual of Catholicism. But when I was 40, I had a period of depression. I was burnt out from working. I wasn't 40. I was 40 when I started. I started getting into Buddhism. I think I needed a psychotherapist, and I think that I couldn't afford one. So there was a Tibetan Lama living in Cavan, and it was cheaper to go to him. But I became his teacher. He became my teacher. The Panchen Utral Rinpoche. He lives in West Cavan, and he's still my teacher. And I have, over the years, gone to Mongolia with him. I've gone to his monastery in India, and I have worked hard to try and learn how to practice some of the ritual and some of the meditation and mind training that they have within the Tibetan Buddhist system. So I've tried that. I've always loved Judaism because my father's granny was a Jew from Poland, and so I feel a deep kind of affinity with the rituals of the Jewish tradition. And of course, all the Torah, what they call the Torah, is all the books in the Old Testament. We call it the Old Testament as Christians, but I love and revere and respect that. I've been to Auschwitz twice. I find that the suffering of the Holocaust of the Jews in Europe in some way is a historical event that is like God's revelation to Europe. We are being taught something by the level of our own barbaric animal history. We have sinned so badly in this moment of trying to exterminate the Jews in Europe that we have a long road of recovery. And finally, at the moment, I have a friend from Syria, and he's Muslim, and I'm really listening to Islam and thinking how beautiful the poetry, that stuff is. So I'm for everything.
When you talk, Mike, this like my journey into it, as I was saying, I was kind of gone kind of atheist in a way, and but just ended up feeling hollow, and I wanted to believe in God. So I did this journey, but something clicked in me one time. I was listening to a guy, he's an author from England, and I love listening to him. I just find him a very honest man, and he's a gay guy, and he always came across to me as he would be an atheist, but he was talking one time and he said, I think we've actually found out the one thing that's worse than a world with religion. He said, a world without religion. Yeah. And it just clicked in my head, and I actually started to open up to it, and I said, here, I'm going to start looking into this kind of thing, and but it's funny when you say this, I came from a position where I actually wanted to prove to myself there was a God, okay, whatever way that was to me, whatever it is. But what you're kind of saying is that you believe in the religions, but you don't believe in God, in inverted brackets, or whatever you want to.
I believe in the religions like I believe in fingers, but I know they're not the moon.
But do you believe in the moon?
Well, the moon is there. The moon is there. I mean, the experience of love, the experience of joy, the experience of compassion, we don't have to prove them. We experience them with our children, with our parents, and with our lovers, right? So we know what that is to have a consciousness that goes beyond the ego and feels close to another.
Connection.
Yeah. so that's there. And to live in that space is to live in heaven, and to live in that space without dysfunction or without being burdened by the damage that was done to you in the past, to live without having to drag the trauma with you unconsciously, to live just free in the present moment, in the joy of being here, then that to me is heaven. That to me is like the moon. That is the beauty of being. And I don't want anything or speculate on anything other than that, because that is infinite. What is going on right now is infinite, right? So the only way I use religion is the way you use your finger to point at the moon, okay? And you can use any religion, I think. They work effectively, and you can also use no religion. So I don't think that religion is like, it's an option. Religion is a good idea. No, I don't think it is. I think it's like whatever suits you, whatever therapy, whatever ritual, language, stuff you use to find the moon. And I mean that obviously as a metaphor, to find that which is beautiful, to feel your heart, that you're living not just in your brain, but actually that your brain has gone into your heart, and you always feel it physically. You always feel, when you're conscious of somebody else, you feel it physically. You know, when you say I love you, that you feel it's coming out of your body, not just your head. And we all do. So this thing, it's so real, in fact, that the Sufis in Islam, you know, they have a beautiful idea. They just simply said there is nothing but God. This thing of whether there's a God or not is a Western idea that there is reality, and behind reality there's some, you know, fella in a glass box with a beard and, you know, manipulating the universe. We have kind of objectified God, but maybe God is not an object at all. Maybe God doesn't exist as such, as a thing, but maybe actually God is simply almost like the space of being. And that maybe, as I say, as the Sufi and the Muslim says, there is nothing but God. You know, everything. Your child, your infant, your parent, your lover, the coal scuttle, the fire, the guitar, everything is shimmering with God. If we could just relax into it and be here now in heaven.
Amazing.
One thing that you said that I kind of was drawn to, well, first of all, what Mick was saying, I didn't know Mick had been exploring different religions or that kind of thing.
Come out of the closet.
Yeah. All the deep, meaningful conversations we have over the past while, and you've never said it. So, but no, it kind of, because you got me thinking, and Mick, you said you were kind of hollow and empty before it, right? Well, feeling as an atheist, because I'm at that stage where I just don't believe in anything, you know, and it's kind of a bit of a, when I'm listening to you sharing about it, it's kind of, it makes me a little bit sad in a sense to think that, you know, and what you were saying. Sorry?
Think what, Colin? Sorry.
When I'm thinking like listening to you guys sharing about, you know, believing in heaven and God and some way, and all the different religions, because there was a time in my life when I would have watched lots of documentaries on, you know, on the different types of religions, and just trying to get an understanding of what things were. Or when I went to Indonesia, I would have spent a bit of time reading up on Islam, just because it's a Muslim country, so I kind of wanted to understand what I was getting into. But that would be my only delve into religion at all. So listening to you, Michael, saying about compassion and love is to experience heaven, or to get something, I can't remember exactly how you worded it, but compassion. So does that mean you're experiencing heaven on earth? Is that how you're translating that, or do you mean after?
No, I don't. This after thing. You see, when you think of yourself as an atheist, you're thinking that there are certain things you don't believe in. Okay, you'd say to yourself, "Well, I don't believe in God." Mm-hmm. But what I'd say to you is that the idea of being an atheist is actually a person who holds ideas. you believe that there's no God.
Yeah.
So that's a belief.
Okay, I get you.
But secondly, the real begging question is, what God do you not believe in? In other words, you have to have abstracted some notion of an idea.
So I get you. I have to have an idea of what a God is.
To tell me I don't think the Kerry team are any good is based on a concept in my head that there is such a thing as the Kerry team.
I get you.
Right? So when you say, or when anybody says, no, I don't believe in God, well, it's like, well, what God do you not believe in? Because there's obviously, you're stating a position of belief, even though it sounds negative, but it is a position of belief. I do not believe in God. Maybe it's a male God, maybe it's, as I say, a fellow with a beard or whatever. What I'm saying is, I would share that with you, and I don't believe in heaven, I don't believe in afterlife, I don't believe in God, and I don't believe in anything. I don't believe in religion. Right? So that's my position.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that I experience being here and now. Do you experience being here?
Yeah.
So we are conscious. We've developed this kind of awakened consciousness as animals, as the human species. We've developed through the imagination. We think we are at least more conscious than other animals in the way that we can imagine things. We can imagine things that don't exist, and we can also imagine past and present. We can do a lot of stuff with our kind of conscious mind, right? So we know we're here. Well, religion is only trying to come to terms with what's here. It's not really, religion at its best is not really talking about some sort of other abstracted reality, some virtual cosmos that exists somewhere else that we're all going to end up in, like in 10 years' time. That is not, in any religion, that is not what they're saying. I know it gets misunderstood like that, but basically all religion is simply saying, we are here, we're conscious we're here. Now, we experience this thing called love and compassion. So religion is in some way a kind of way to ritualize that and reinforce it. That to me would be religion. You know? Yeah,
so it is kind of experiencing it on earth and in life.
Absolutely. There's no other.
Yeah.
There's a lovely thing in Donegal where there was a saint called columnist in the 1500 years ago. And he was an old monk. He ended up in Scotland in Iona. He died when he was 75 years of age. And it was in his monastery in Scotland that the artists created the Book of Kells.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy is a very real animal. And he was also a cantankerous and troublesome young fellow until he was about 40. Like he'd stir war and fights everywhere. Anyway, to have a pilgrimage, it's like a kind of a religious ritual up in Glencolumkill, up beside the ocean. And you go around these various standing stones and you do various little rituals, like you walk around them 3 times and say prayers, whatever. But one of them is a standing stone. It's like about 2 meters high. It's ancient, it's about 5,000 years old. And there's a beautiful hole, carved hole in the middle of it. And they say that when you look through it, you can see heaven. Okay? So you'd be looking through it to see, could you see heaven? But when you I looked through it and I could see the village. But then I understood that's the point. If you look at what's in front of you, that is heaven.
Mm.
Heaven as an abstracted intellectual concept of something else. Well, that's a kind of a gobbledygook. That is not, it doesn't fit in my sense of using religion or faith experience or prayer as a psychotherapy, as a mind training to be more awake in the present moment. So that when I talk about heaven, I'm talking about us here now.
Mm.
Oh, this is heaven.
Amazing.
And it comes from it's really fascinating to listen to because I've been so closed off to the idea, You know, in recent times I started calling myself agnostic because I did start to realize that I just don't know. That was more it. Like, I just don't know. It's hard for me to say, I give a definitive answer that there is no anything bar what we see in that. So my kind of stance, I would kind of refer to myself more nowadays as agnostic and undecided, not really understanding. But I do think I've been so, I don't know if you'd call it ignorant towards it, but I just got this block. When someone would mention God, I shut down. You know, and I always struggle, like you said at the start there, it's not literal. You know, that stuff is actually not literally true. So it's something that I need to consider and go on a secret journey like Mick.
I'll just make a suggestion to you, right? Because I haven't opened the Bible, I don't own one. But what I started, or any of the Quran or any of this, but what I've started to do is read people who talk about these religions or talk about faith or there's people like G.K. Chesterton, right? And this is a guy from the 1900s, and he started to write because he saw it was like the likes of Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher, that's really it has perpetuated this kind of world that we live in now. You know what I mean? A lot of his ideologies and stuff like that, and he was kind of countering them, and he blew it all out of the water in 1900. And all his stuff today, when I read his stuff, it explains everything from the universe to anything you can think of, he has written about. And they call him the apostle of common sense. And this is something that I aspire to so much now, rather than knowledge or anything else, is just to have some common sense. Because when you talk about that thing of what changes when you become 40, you know what I mean? What I've realised is that, like, that was what I was really lacking. I could talk the talk, but I just lacked common sense. And this man just talks common sense. He just talks truth. And we've talked about, like, in the podcast before, and it's in your writing, Michael. Like, you wrote a book, Staring at Lakes, and about depression, and that resonated with people in a way that it was not talked about in our culture because of your honesty. You just spoke the truth, and when people read it, it just went like ding. It was just that thing where you just struck it. And this guy writes in the same way. And when I read things like that, I can't listen to preachers, I can't listen to any of these type of things, but there's a wisdom that is contained in these things that when I read them, I feel more fulfilled. Like, when I hear this guy explaining stuff, and it has made my life more enriched, you know what I mean? And the reason I don't talk about Colin, I'll be honest with you, or Danny, is because I feel like I'm not in a position to defend, you know, where I could almost, like, when you mention the word in a lot of, like, to a lot of people in modern society, when you say the word God, that's why I say it's loaded. Straight away, like you talk about, it's shut down. It's like, you know, what's behind that? What's he talking about? What's his belief? When I'm only on this journey of discovery, and what I've realised, by being shut down to that stuff, I was cutting myself off for deep, deep wisdom and deep joy, Michael. Like, there's a joy in this stuff too.
I mean, again, I wouldn't encourage anybody towards religion, which is a funny thing to say, but it's the truth, because I think that we're talking about the moon as a beautiful experience. We're not talking about pointing at it. You know, we're talking about a boat, religion as a boat that gets you across a river, not walking around with it on your head. And so, in many respects, those who are very often sometimes free of religion are very often the most enlightened ones among us, you know. And it's not about religion. That's the thing about religion, is it's not about religion. If religion becomes about religion, then you're completely lost.
Yeah.
Religion is about dismantling religion. Religion is about the finger seeing the moon, pointing at the moon. It's like realizing that ultimately be here now and believe that you can heal yourself and be healed by others from wounds and from damage that's been done to you. Believe that when you're in the dark and when you're depressed, that too is human and it's okay and you will come out of it. Believe in all the mystery of being here now and just rejoice in that. And then you don't need religion, to be honest with you. But I mean, that's where religion gets me. But I don't it's not something I necessarily want to pass on even to my children. It's like,
and I don't even pass it on to my friends
because they maybe their joy will be found without those structures, and who knows what the future will bring. You know, maybe there will be more evolution in the human species. I don't know.
I know, like, listen, it's a very personal. I'll let you know in a second, Danny, what you got to put. It's just like, you know, just to clarify, this is only a thing. It's like scratching the surface, and it's such another tool that has come in, and it's very late in my spiritual journey. You know what I mean? And it's most definitely, I'm not looking to take up a religion and run with the baton. It's just like, I have found that more so these people who have been inspired by it, and who have and I find a great wisdom in it, and it's just opening me up to it. Like, you know, the three main things that I have learned to try and have in my life: honesty, open-mindedness, and then willingness. But the open-minded thing is just, the more open-minded I become, and I don't have a vested interest in it other than what can I get from this? Like, what is it going to enrich my life? You know. Sorry, Danny, you were going to say something.
No problem. I suppose the biggest thing that I kind of taken out of this and listening to you, Michael, is massively the whole concept of the different fingers and the different journeys to getting to the moon, and not to be focused on the fingers, but to be connecting with the moon, and how we get to that moon isn't that relevant. It's more about getting to the moon and being connected with the moment, what's going on now, our soul, spirituality. And I speak for myself, but I'm sure the lads might agree, is that my journey personally, through the 12 steps of a recovery program, has been that finger pointing me towards the moon, you know, by going through those steps and then continuously practicing that thing in my life, and adding other things like meditation, prayer, just being in the present, noticing, going to nature, sitting beside the ocean, looking at the stars, whatever it may be, to kind of to look at as you said, my girlfriend, well, actually now my fiance, to look at her and be present with her and see the love in her, feel the love in myself, and be fully connected with that level. And that for me is the moon. You know what I mean? And that's what I love. And getting there can be done. People, and I think in this society, that journey of getting there, people are scrambling sometimes the whole way through their lives, through money, through greed, through drugs, through whatever it is, to get closer to the moon, but they're going in the wrong direction. Whereas religions are tools, but there are other tools to get to that moon. And the other thing is, I don't think it's a constant. I don't think I'm constantly connected with the moon. I have moments where I move away from the moon, and I realize that I have to put practice in to get closer to the moon again. And I just love that description that you have, it, because, you know, it describes kind of my journey up until today. Today is my in and outward journey towards the moon, and connecting with the moon, and connecting with the presence, and how beautiful that journey has been as well. You know what I mean? And how beautiful the journey that can be. And I liked what you said, that feeling when you are deeply connected to the moon is heaven on earth. Is heaven on earth. Because you're in the present, you're in that moment, and you're feeling that passion and love and good feeling. And I just really like the way you describe it. So I'd like to thank you for that description, because it's kind of a really nice one about the moon and the fingers, you know?
Well, I mean, we even use the word as a metaphor all the time. You know, you'd see somebody who's in love and happy, and you'd say, "How are you doing?" He'd say, "I'm over the moon."
Yeah.
Well,
I like that.
Nobody takes them up literally. Like, nobody takes them up. Jesus, you're an astronaut, are you? They know exactly. They know exactly what his sentence means. I'm over the moon. I'm on the moon. I'm up on the moon. Means I am full of joy right now. So that's the way metaphors work, and I think that's the way religion works. But again, everything you said there, I completely agree with, and you said it very eloquently about present and the prayerfulness and attention to the sunset and the lake and the nature. All that being awake to the beauty around you is what you'd call prayer, And when you talk about the 12 steps, it's a classic example of how faith transcends religion, because you don't have to have a religion to be involved in the 12-step program. But at the same time, there is a step in it which says, rely on something greater than yourself. Rely on something greater than yourself. That is to open the heart, to let go the ego, the self-reliance, and just trust the openness beyond you. And that can be described in any religion as prayer, right? So there you go, prayer released from religion. There's a way to go. Get prayerful, don't be getting religious. And even in the Heart Sutra, which is it's in the old Indian text, the Heart Sutra is a powerful text, and it says that the key point in the Heart Sutra says the ultimate teaching is that there is no teaching. That's a beautiful wise, the Heart Sutra, because a lot of people awake and they get over addiction, they get over trouble, they get over this, that, or the other, and then they become really, really open. And what happens? They have let go of money, they've let go of greed, they've let go of all their desires. And this is, let's say, because they became Buddhist or Christian or whatever. But then what happens is they start gripping the religious ideas instead of the money. And you get this sense of a grip in people. It's like a clenched fist. And they'll be looking at you. They might be Hindu, they might be Jewish, they might be Christian, they might be Buddhist, whatever. But they're looking at you like they want to convert you. So that the Heart Sutra is saying the ultimate teaching is there is no teaching. If you begin to think the teaching is true, like in a kind of substantial way, it's like thinking that the finger is important rather than the moon it's pointing at. It's going around with the boat on your head. And I think you give a classic example and a wonderful example of how the life of the heart, the life of compassion, the life of love does grow outside religion. It's almost like a shell that you can get rid of. And then you stand with the atheist, the agnostic, with whatever you're having yourself, but with the heart open to the sense of the beauty of the otherness of the cosmos, the beauty of your beloved, the beauty of your children, the beauty of your parents, and also the sense in the 12 steps that you rely on others, something other than you, greater than you, just trust it. And you're in prayer. And you're in heaven.
Well, I think that's a fantastic way to finish up our podcast for this evening, lads. A big thank you to Michael for coming on with some really, really interesting stuff. Just to say to everyone, please get a copy of Michael's new book. It's Chest Pain. It's in all good bookshops at the minute. And so thanks a million, Michael.
Thank you, and thanks, guys. It's lovely.
Great chatting, Michael. Yeah, brilliant chat here. I've really, you've left me with a lot to think about, actually, which is...
it's not good. That's not good.
You weren't listening.
No.
Tonight now.
Don't be thinking.
I won't answer the phone to
Stop
Mick
thinking.
anymore.
yeah, that's me. No, but thanks. And lads, just we'll finish it up, I suppose, on where you can get us. You can get us on email on 3drylads, that's number 3drylads@gmail.com.
Hit us up on our Instagram. Give us a follow. Is That's Good Crack Podcast. Our Facebook page is just That's Good Crack, and crack is spelled CRAIC for all you Americans that have wrote to me already asking me what is actually the crack. They think it's like other forms of crack. But go for it, Danny.
Yeah, you can find us on Twitter on that_crack. Again, it's not the CRACK, it's the CRAIC version of crack. So just in case you take it up the other way. And I just wanted to share a little bit of news myself. I turned 40 last week, and I'd also like to say I'm feeling very grateful that my beautiful girlfriend said yes to me and agreed to mine. So I just wanted to say that in the podcast.
Congratulations, Danny.
Congratulations.
And Danny, you need to get a copy of Chest Pains, because Michael gives a great, a positive kind of view, but a real view on marriage. So so you can see what's down the line for you.
Yeah.
All right, so lads, it's been great.
Right.
Okay.
Take care, lads.
Thanks a million,
Bye-bye.
Michael.
Peace.
Okay, bye-bye.
Don't forget to subscribe to That's Good Crack on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and wherever you're listening to it right now.